Today on The Global African, we'll spend the show talking to Palestinian American comedian Amer Zahr about life as a Palestinian living in the United States. That's Today on The Global African. You don't want to miss this one. I'm your host, Bill Fletcher, of course. Thanks for joining us. Out of nowhere, some months back, I received an email from our guest, Amer Zahr. It wasn't a personal email. It was a commentary that turned out to be a regular commentary by him that focused on the issues facing Arabs and Muslims in the United States. A master of satire and an excellent writer, Zahr really raises for us the issues that are facing Arabs and Muslims. That's what we're going to look at in this segment of The Global African, so stay tuned. It is my pleasure to introduce our next guest, Amer Zahr, who is an Arab American comedian, speaker, writer, adjunct professor at the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law. What's really interesting, what I've found interesting about Amer is that he uses comedy and satire to make some of the most poignant points on issues relevant to issues of race, religion, politics, the situation facing the Palestinians. So I want to welcome you to The Global African.
Thanks so much, Bill. It's my pleasure, and you are too kind.
Oh, it's true. It's easy when it's true. I wanted to start with actually the issue of what got you. It was sort of like all of a sudden I received, and I don't know what email list I was on, your email blast. And this was, I don't know, whenever, a year ago, maybe more. And I read it and I said, wow, I mean, this is really powerful. And it was, your commentaries are funny. Sometimes I want to cry out of sadness, but there's always an emotional reaction that I have, or a response that I have. What got you going?
Well, I started doing comedy when I was in law school. I went to law school at the University of Michigan, and this was maybe 2002 or 3, a little bit after 9/11. And they were bringing an Arab comedian to campus. And, you know, I was on campus, I was involved in some groups, and they kind of put it out there if anybody would like to get on stage before him, basically just to fill up some time on stage, because they needed, to fill up some time. So I said, sure, I'll try it. I got on stage, told a couple, just silly jokes about my dad, a couple stories, and everybody laughed. And I kind of got hooked at that point. I said, wow, this is pretty cool. People listen to you more when you make them laugh. And as an activist, especially as a Palestinian activist, all we're trying to do all the time is get people to listen to us. So if we can, laughter is very powerful in that way. So over time, though, I mean, I didn't weave activism into my comedy at first, because frankly, I was, scared from a couple points of view, scared from the one point that, could I do that? Because I think it takes a lot more savvy to talk about deep issues in comedy than it does simply to say, our parents have accents, or they're crazy, or they don't know how to use the phone, or whatever. And I had to become comfortable with that. And so that took some time. But now that's basically what I do mostly.
I'll tell you what, though, if I do get married, for Arab men, we're lucky. We have like a plan B, Palestinians usually don't have plan B, but we do. So Palestinians, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but Palestinians, even not just in Jordan, but everywhere in the world, they're very successful. Palestinians, extremely successful. They don't just work in the garage, they own the garage. They don't just work in the hospital, they are the head of the hospital. We are very successful. And people always ask me, why are Palestinians so successful? I tell them it's very easy, it's simple. It's not because we're related to Jesus. It's because we Palestinians, we do not have plan B. We can't mess up and go back to our country. It doesn't work like that for us, so we make it work. And we work very hard. Very hard. And we never go on vacation. And people say to me, why don't Palestinians go on vacation? I tell them it's very simple. We don't go on vacation because we do not like to leave our house for more than 2 or 3 days. We know what happened last time.
And I found it to be very powerful in getting people to listen. I mean, it's very disarming. And when Palestinians are speaking, we're kind of talking about deep issues anyway. I mean, nothing about the Palestinian experience over the last 70 years is funny. But if you can put it in a way that makes people laugh, then I feel like we can get a lot more people to listen to us.
I don't know if I'm going to give up like that and just go get a girl from the village. Maybe. But if I take a girl from the village, I want the one like they never let out of the village ever. You know? So that when I bring her to America, she's impressed with everything. I'm going to take credit for it. You know? Like, wow, the electricity is on all the time? I said, yeah, that's right. Wow, the water is hot when it comes out? That's right. Wow, you guys have a target? In Palestine, we are target. That's right.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up, well, I was born in Jordan. My dad is a Palestinian refugee that came to study in America. Met my mother, who was a Palestinian refugee who came to America as a teen. They met at the University of California, Berkeley in the 70s. And then my dad got a job at the University of Jordan. And so I was born in Jordan. And then when I was 3, my dad was an activist as well. And when I was 3, he came into, let's say, some disfavor with the Jordanian government for being a little too vocal about Palestinian stuff. And he was fired from his job. And we ended up in America. That's how we ended up in America. Basically, my dad was kicked out of Palestine in 1948 for being Palestinian, and then kicked out of Jordan in 1980 for being Palestinian. And so we ended up in America, and I grew up outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and lived there until I was 18, and then moved to Michigan to go to school at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And I was been here now since 1995. I did my undergraduate degree and my master's degree in my law school, all at the University of Michigan, and then just kind of stayed out here. And now I live in Dearborn, which is the home of Arab America and Sharia law, in case nobody knew that. We have Sharia law everywhere.
And growing up, did you grow up with a consciousness of being Palestinian?
Yeah, I mean, being Palestinian is relentless. It's not something I don't think that any Palestinian can take a vacation from. It's such a part of our identity, right? It's such a part of who we are. There are varying degrees, obviously, but my parents were pretty strong activists. As a kid, I remember going to meetings with them about activism. I remember waking up some days at 7 a.m. on a Saturday in Philly, and 3 hours later, we're in New York City and we're protesting. And, you know, Palestinians protest and they don't care if it rhymes or if it doesn't rhyme. You know, they just, 1, 2, 3, 4, we don't want your war. 5, 6, 7, 8, get out of Palestine. We don't care
Right.
if it rhymes or if it doesn't. So I have been in this life forever. I don't really know any other life than the life of an activist Palestinian, but I also don't think it's that unique. Being Palestinian is something that lives with you every day. You cannot be a casual Palestinian. I mean, that doesn't exist.
Well, one of the things that I've frequently been curious about is the pre-9/11 experience of Arab Americans. Growing up, there were people that I would find out were Arab. They weren't Palestinian as far as I know. Danny Thomas, who I believe was Lebanese. There was the radio DJ Casey Kasem. And, you'd have people like that you sort of discover were Arab American. I remember there was an activist in a auto plant in Massachusetts, and he was active in the union, but he allowed people to call him the Arab. I'm not joking. He allowed people, and when I was introduced to him, they introduced him, and he introduced himself as the Arab, and I could not call him that. What, you grew up with a Palestinian consciousness, but it seems like Arab Americans are sort of all over the place in terms of how they see themselves.
Well, I mean, look, being Arab has been, the word Arab has been a dirty word in America for generations. It didn't start with 9/11. I mean, 9/11 might have magnified some of these tropes and stereotypes that American society has had, but it didn't invent them. They've been around forever. Even in the mass media, even in the entertainment media. I mean, Back to the Future is an iconic movie of American culture. And the whole movie starts with the reason that we learn about the DeLorean in 1955 and all the kind of stuff that we learn about is because Doc and Michael J. Fox are running from these Libyan terrorists. Remember that?
That's right. I remember that.
Opening scene of the movie. So, I mean, it's nothing new. And so Arabs sometimes internalize that, right? Internalize the idea that American society sees us not only as different, but as a danger, as disloyal, as a threat to the American way of life. And that's a sort of white supremacy and racism that just takes a different strain than other strains. Not better or worse, but it is different. To the point where Arab lives are routinely dehumanized. The most famous movie, the most highest grossing movie of 2014 was American Sniper, which is just 2 hours of somebody basically performing target practice on Arabs. And not only what is the highest grossing movie, I mean, that would be bad enough because there's been dumb movies that have been high grossing movies, but it was also nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Director and Best Actor and all this kind of stuff. So not only did it make a lot of money, it was also celebrated by like the left liberal artistic elite. So it's very fashionable to be racist against Arabs to the point where sometimes we internalize it. And so somebody calling somebody an Arab might be so easy for them. And just happens so much that sometimes we that's why if you go to any Arab American event a lot of times, and I go to a lot of them, they always start off by singing the national anthem, which I think is the weirdest thing in the world. I mean, we all love America and everything, but it is, I go to Black events and Latino events, and I don't really see them sing the national anthem. But we do it because we fall into this trap that we have to prove our patriotism. I mean, I was at an event in Dearborn about a few years ago, and there's 1,000 Arabs in a room, and one of them goes sing the national anthem, and 1,000 Arabs get up, and they start singing it. And Bill, English is like their fifth language. They really have no idea what they're saying. I mean, they don't know what ramparts in Galilee are. I can guarantee you that. But they get up and sing it for the perception of the whole thing, because we're as scared as anybody else. After 9/11, the first people to put up flags were us. I mean, if you went up and down the streets of Dearborn, flags everywhere. And that's because we're constantly proving our patriotism, but it hasn't worked out for us. Because when you condemn a terrorist act, when another, I don't like the word terrorism, it's basically become a racial slur now, but when you condemn what they call a terrorist attack, when the next one happens, they ask you to condemn it again. So they didn't believe your condemnation the first time, right?
Right.
This is like somebody who has to keep, telling his wife that he's not cheating on her, Right. I mean, if you have to keep saying it, she doesn't believe you. And that's kind of what's happening to us.
You mentioned 9/11, and immediately that triggered for me Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And this story that he was telling, and I'd like to actually talk it through with you, because on one level, I am absolutely mystified that he would tell that story and continue to tell that story and basically say that he was justified in telling it because people have tweeted him saying that they saw the same thing. And there is absolutely no evidence of this.
Yeah.
I mean,
how
did you
Donald
react?
Trump is obviously, evidence that America, or certain parts of America, are, we've seen it going on for a while, but we finally have reached like the lowest common denominator. So that's who we're dealing with politically and intellectually. But, here's the funny things about what he describes. First of all, yes, there's no evidence. I mean, it says thousands and thousands, and obviously there's no evidence for that. But funny enough, by the way, there were some people celebrating and jumping on top of vans after 9/11, and they were Israeli Mossad agents who were arrested by the FBI and detained for a couple weeks after 9/11, wondering what they were doing there, filming all that stuff. So, I mean, he's right about one thing. He just has the culprits wrong. But it just goes to prove that Arab Americans and Muslim Americans are just the punching bag. I mean, it's so easy, right? I almost feel bad for racists because we're kind of like their last hope. Like when they lose us, it's over, right? We're the last group that you can openly say things about, and no one asks you to apologize. No one asks you to resign. Ben Carson says no Muslim should be president. He gains 5 points in the polls. Right. Donald Trump's whole campaign, or one of the main parts of his campaign, is run on Islamophobia. Let's ID all the Muslims. Let's surveil all the mosques. Let's kill terrorist families if we have to. And all this stuff gets loud applause. And now today a poll just came out that he has the largest lead he's had yet. So we're the last group. It didn't start with Donald Trump, though. When Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, and I voted for Barack Obama twice because he's a Muslim. Anyway, so when Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, they said, watch out for Barack Obama. He has a Palestinian friend. That's it. That's all they said. And Barack Obama had to come out and deny that he has a Palestinian friend, which you think is a weird concept in this country, right? Because isn't every Sunday in this country based on the idea that we all have a Palestinian friend?
That's right.
And so we have to keep, but this has been going on forever. Barack Obama was running for president in 2008, and a woman at a town hall meeting walks up to John McCain and says, I can't trust Obama. He's an Arab. And McCain grabs the microphone from her and says, no, ma'am, he's a decent family man.
He's a decent family man.
Okay? This is the world that we live in. We live in a world where they arrest Arab Muslim kids in Texas, a 14-year-old, for having a clock, okay, telling everybody that he was performing the crime of a hoax bomb, which it's not a hoax if you're telling everybody it's a clock. Mm-hmm. And then Fox News came out and said, well, maybe they thought he had a bomb, so they had to, that they had to do that because they thought he had a bomb. But they didn't think he had a bomb, Bill, because that's not how they act when they think you have a bomb. When they think you have a bomb, they evacuate the school, they call in the bomb squad. They don't take you down to the principal's office with your bomb to go talk to the principal. That's not the way it works. And as an Arab, I'm very familiar with bomb protocol, and that is not what they do when they think you have a bomb. So everything that is going on in this country, it's not new. Arabs have been the fashionable target of racism for generations. And if anything, that should scare all other people of color in this country, because racists aren't picky, right? Racists, white supremacy is not picky in its targets. So if they are still being terribly racist against Arabs and Muslims, it's only because they can. There's nothing special about us. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't mean, so that's clear evidence that there has not been a dissolution of racism against blacks and Latinos, but maybe white people have understood that there's a price for it, so they can't do it as openly anymore, but it doesn't mean they don't feel it anymore. Mm-hmm. In fact, the evidence is that it's still there prevalently. We're the evidence, because they're doing it to us openly, and people are running presidential platforms on it.
What was your first thought when you heard about San Bernardino?
Please don't be Arab. I mean, this is how much I've been mentally damaged by the media. And I hate this about myself. I was sitting in front of the TV. I was glued. Let me confess something to you, Bill, and your viewers, which I'm not proud of, okay? Mm-hmm. I was watching TV all day, hoping and praying that the person who did this was not an Arab or not a Muslim. Mm-hmm. And I know something about myself. I know I was waiting for them to announce that it was a white guy. Yeah. And when they announced it was a white guy, do you know what I would have done? I would have turned off the TV. And I don't feel good about that, but that's what I would have done, because I know that when the criminal is Arab or Muslim, all of a sudden you end up with a much different story, right? Mm-hmm. When the criminal is white, you get different descriptions: disturbed, deranged, delusional, depressed. That's a new one in 2015, by the way. That's a new one. Remember the guy earlier in the year, the German pilot that flew the plane into the side of a mountain in France and killed 150 people? Right. And CNN talked to me for 2 weeks about depression. It was amazing. I'd never seen anything like that in my depression for 2 weeks. A murderer of 150 people. And so I know that they're not going to deal like that when it's us. And so it just gets a different treatment altogether. To the point, even with the San Bernardino shootings, all day long on CNN and MSNBC, they were, kind of wondering whether or not this was terrorism. And it was clear that they were simply using the word terrorism as a euphemism for whether or not the actors were Arab or Muslim, because that's all terrorism has become anymore. It's simply a racial slur. It doesn't mean anything anymore in any legal or political sense that we can process intellectually. It simply means acts committed by Arabs and Muslims. And we see it all the time. And the experts on TV it's really funny. The experts on TV are, when there's issues concerning Black America, the experts are Black. Issues concerning Latino America, the experts are Latino. For some reason, when there's issues concerning Arab America and Muslim America, or Arabs and Muslims, the experts are all white. It's the craziest thing in the world. And they get things wrong. I mean, they get things wrong. They start quoting Arabic that's just wrong. But it's put off as, and it's marketed as, expert analysis.
Right.
And this is what we deal with in this country. It's not just Fox News, by the way. I mean, Fox News is the worst of them. But it's not just Fox. It's CNN and MSNBC doing it too. And so we see all this, right? And sometimes it leads to some in our community overcompensating or saying, hey, let's go out there and show them that we condemn these things. Let's sing the national anthem. Let's be patriotic. But it doesn't work. It doesn't work. White people don't think we're white. And that's really the only thing that matters in this country. If white people don't think you're white, it doesn't matter how hard you try to be white. And it's not working out for us, and we need to come up with a new strategy.
Your response on San Bernardino was exactly mine. So I don't know whether I should be ashamed too, but it's a response that I have, Amer, when there's certain kinds of crimes that take place, my first reaction is, I pray this is not a Black person. And, in the context of these shootings, I have this same thing. It just, please, let this not be an Arab or a Muslim. It was interesting what you just said about, if it had turned out it was a white guy, you would have turned off the TV. And I really get that. And I think a lot of other people do too, that it really does take on a completely different narrative. It's like after Oklahoma City. I was thinking about Oklahoma City this morning and the bombing in '95, and just remembering how well that when the bombing took place, the immediate expectation was that, or assumption was that it was Arabs or Muslims, and once they found out it was a homegrown white boy, all of a sudden the entire discussion shifted, to all of these quasi-psychological analyses of Timothy McVeigh and these other characters and what they were really going on, and how could they have done something like this, which they would never have done if the perpetrator had been an Arab or Muslim.
When you start speaking to someone's mental illnesses or something like that and treat them as a person, that's a very humanizing thing. And it only happens with white perpetrators. And that's really the height of white privilege to me. I mean, the height of white privilege doesn't lie in like hiring or housing. I mean, it exists in all those things, but it really lies in times of the highest times of stress, that white people simply don't ever sit in front of the TV saying, God, I hope it's not a white guy who committed that crime. They don't feel that,
right? Because
they know that if it is, it's not going to affect them as a people. It's not going to affect them as the way nobody's going to be asked to apologize or condemn from the white community, which is really amazing considering out of the 350 or so mass shootings that there have been in the country this year, 95% of them have been committed by white people.
Right.
But whiteness doesn't follow white people. It's the most beautiful thing. Like, I mean, Arabs are legally considered white, as you know, in the census, but we're not white in any functional way. But I kind of wish that we were. I mean, being white seems like the most amazing thing in the whole world. I mean, it really does. I mean, you can say anything, do anything. Nobody ever asks about your whiteness. I mean, the epitome of whiteness, right? People always ask me, well, what's white? I say to them, it's this: the fact that you cannot mess it up for other white people. Like, no matter how hard you try, you cannot. You know, Barack Obama is the black president. Mm-hmm. But if it turns out that he has a personal scandal out there, like, I mean, a real personal scandal, like, you know, like a baby mama or something out there that we didn't know about, okay? Mm-hmm. No other black guy could ever be president ever again.
That's
I mean,
right.
That might be true already, but that would be true. Every black candidate from now on is going to be compared to Barack Obama. So no other black guy he carries the mantle for all future black candidates for president. But George Bush started a fake war. I mean, it was fake. It was imaginary, built on, now we know, lies. And 5,000 Americans have died in Iraq. Hundreds of thousands, almost 1 million Iraqis have died. But it didn't stop John McCain from running for president. Mm-hmm. Nobody said, you know, we had this one white guy, let's watch out for the next one. Bill Clinton got daily sexual favors in the White House for years. And it didn't stop Mitt Romney or his own wife, for running for president of the United States of America. And Bill Clinton would probably still be president today, by the way. If there was like no term limits, he probably would have kept getting elected. Barack Obama proved that a black guy can become president if he went to Harvard and Columbia, and if he's written 3 books, and he's a law professor, and he's like the best speaker we've ever heard in our lives, and all that. And if his name is Barack, it's not Tyrone. And if his mom's white from Kansas, then a black guy can become president of the United States. George W. Bush proved any white guy can become president of the United States. There is no minimum requirement. And that's the world that we live in. That's how you see how being white is so amazing.
It is.
I wish I were, but I'm not.
Amer, I wish we could go on and on. This is fantastic. And we really appreciate you taking this time to be with us. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Bill. Thanks so much. And thank you for all that you do as well.
And thank you very much for joining us for this episode of The Global African. We'll see you next time. Take care.